glass, as if the whole city had leaned closer to hear what my father had left behind. She removed a single page, cream-colored like the envelope Roman had carried, and unfolded it beneath the altar lights. My father's handwriting covered the top half. I knew the shape of every letter, the careful slope of his G, the way he crossed his T like he was closing a gate. For a moment, I was 8 years old again at the kitchen table, watching him sign school forms while he asked if I wanted cinnamon on my oatmeal. Then Nora began to read. If my daughter Grace Bennett refuses marriage to any member of the Wells family before the trust amendment is signed, all estate access is to be frozen immediately. No spouse, guardian, relative, trustee, or affiliated party may act on her behalf without her direct written approval and independent counsel present. My aunt made a small sound, but Nora did not look up. The location of the first key is known only to Grace, though she may not remember it until the dove is returned. I looked at Roman. The dove. He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket again, slower this time, and took out a small white paper bird, flattened carefully between 2 pieces of clear plastic. Its edges were browned with age. One wing was torn. My heart forgot how to beat. That is not possible, I whispered. He held it out, but again, he did not step into my space. You gave it to me the night your father hit us. My fingers shook as I took it. The paper was fragile, almost weightless, but the second it touched my palm, memory opened like a door at the end of a long dark hallway. Rain hitting a tin roof. My small shoes soaked through. Roman as a boy crouched beside me behind stacked crates, telling me not to cry because birds were braver than people thought. My father lifting a loose floorboard. A brass key wrapped in blue thread. My own child voice whispering, hide it where songs sleep. I gasped. The cathedral blurred. The choir room, I said. Roman's eyes sharpened. Nora closed the folder. St. Aurelia's old choir room? I nodded, still staring at the paper dove. There was a piano. Broken pedals. A bench with a split underneath. Charles moved so suddenly several guests turned toward him. This is absurd. Nora faced him at last. Mr. Wells, I advise you not to interfere with a beneficiary accessing her father's legally protected instruction. His face tightened, but he stopped. That was when I understood something about power. Real power did not always raise its voice. Sometimes it carried a folder, wore sensible shoes, and knew exactly which sentence could make a powerful man step back. We left the altar together. Not as a wedding party. As witnesses. Nora walked beside me. Lena followed with my bouquet forgotten in one hand. Roman stayed behind us, close enough to protect the path, far enough to keep from owning it. The old choir room was tucked behind the balcony stairs, a narrow space that smelled of hymn books, dust, lemon polish, and time. Sunlight struggled through a high window, turning the air gold. The piano was still there. Older. Scratched. Its black finish dulled by years of hands and silence. I knelt carefully, my wedding dress pooling around me like spilled moonlight, and ran my fingers beneath the bench. At first, there was nothing. Just rough wood. Then my nail caught a seam. A small panel shifted. Something wrapped in faded blue thread dropped into my palm. The brass key was warm, though the room was cold. Lena covered her mouth. Nora exhaled once. Roman looked away for half a second, and I knew he was remembering the same night I was. My father's hands. The rain. The choice that had tied our lives together long before I knew his name. Attached to the key was a tiny paper tag. On it, in my childhood handwriting, uneven and proud, were 4 words. For the bird vault. I laughed then, softly, brokenly, because children name dangerous things as if naming them gently can make the world safer. Nora leaned closer. Grace, do you know where that is? I turned the key over. On the back, almost hidden by age, my father had engraved 3 letters. A, C, L. Roman saw them and went very still. Ashland Children's Library, he said. My memory answered before I could. A basement reading room. Blue carpet. A mural of birds painted across the ceiling. My father telling me every secret deserved a place where children laughed above it. I stood with the key in my hand and my wedding veil slipping loose from my hair. Downstairs, a groom's family waited for a bride who no longer existed. Beside me, a man called Dangerous had returned my oldest memory without asking for my trust as payment. I looked at Nora. We go there now. We left St. Aurelia's through the west garden, not the front doors where everyone expected a bride to make her graceful exit. The rain had thinned to a silver mist, soft enough to cling to my veil, cold enough to wake every inch of me. Roman's car waited at the curb, black and silent beneath dripping maple trees. I paused before getting in, because a part of me still understood how it looked. A runaway bride, a mafia boss, and a state attorney holding my father's folder. My maid of honor carrying flowers with no ribbon. It sounded like a headline someone else would write badly. Nora opened the rear door and looked at me. Grace, you do not have to ride with Mr. Hale. Roman stood on the other side of the car, one hand resting on the open door, his face unreadable. He did not argue. He did not tell me the city was unsafe. He did not remind me that Charles Wells was probably already making calls. He simply waited. Another door. Another choice. I looked at Lena. Come with me. She nodded before I finished speaking. Only then did I step into the car. Roman took the front passenger seat, leaving the back to Nora, Lena, and me. That small decision did something to my chest. It gave me room to breathe inside a day that had tried to fold me into a name I did not choose. The ride to Ashland Children's Library took 23 minutes through downtown Chicago traffic and wet afternoon light. Outside, pedestrians moved under black umbrellas. Buses hissed along Madison Street. The city looked ordinary, which felt almost insulting. I wanted the buildings to tilt. I wanted the sky to crack open. I wanted everyone to know my wedding had ended because my father had hidden a key beneath a choir bench and a boy from my forgotten past had returned as a man with shadows in his eyes. Instead, a cyclist yelled at a taxi. A coffee shop sign blinked open. Life kept walking past disaster in comfortable shoes. I held the brass key in my palm until it left a crescent mark. Lena watched me quietly. Are you okay? I looked at my wedding dress spread across the leather seat. I do not know what okay is supposed to look like today. Nora gave a soft, humorless smile. Today, okay means you have not signed anything. Roman's gaze flicked to the side mirror. We are being followed. My heart snapped tight. By who? A gray sedan. 2 cars back. He said it calmly, like weather. Nora did not turn around. Wells. Most likely. Lena whispered, should we call the police? Roman looked back at me, not Nora, not Lena. That is your decision. There it was again. Choice, placed carefully in my hands even when fear made them shake. Nora opened her folder. Calling now may create a public scene before we know what the vault contains. But documenting everything is wise. I took out my phone and started recording video, pointing it at the rainy window, the street signs, the reflection of the gray sedan behind us. My voice sounded strange when I spoke. This is Grace Bennett. I am traveling voluntarily with my attorney, Nora Whitfield, my friend Lena Morris, and Roman Hale to Ashland Children's Library to access instructions left by my father, Samuel Bennett. I have not been forced. I have not signed the Wells Trust Amendment. I am recording this because people who lie in private hate when truth learns to keep time. Roman was quiet for several seconds after I stopped. Then he said, your father would have liked that sentence. The words touched me gently. Too gently. I looked away before my face could show it. Ashland Children's Library sat on a corner lined with sycamore trees, a brick building with green doors, and a mural of flying birds faded by years of winter. The moment I saw it, something inside me recognized the shape of home and warning at the same time. We entered through the side ramp. A bell above the door gave a tired silver ring. The lobby smelled like old paper, crayons, floor wax, and raincoats. Behind the desk stood an elderly woman in a red cardigan, her white hair pinned with a dove-shaped clip. She looked at my dress, then at the key in my hand, then at Roman. Her eyes filled, but she did not seem surprised. Samuel said you would come in white, she whispered. I just hoped it would not be because they cornered you. The elderly woman in the red cardigan looked at me like she had been waiting through seasons, budget cuts, children growing up, and rainstorms just to see a bride arrive with a key. Her name tag read Mrs. Evelyn Porter. The letters were scratched at the edges, but her hands were steady as she reached beneath the circulation desk and pressed a small brass button. Somewhere behind the children's mural, a soft click answered. "Your father came here every Thursday for 6 months," she said. "Always after closing. Always with a box of donated books nobody asked for." Nora stepped closer. "Mrs. Porter, were you instructed to release materials to Grace Bennett?" "Only if she came with the bird key." Mrs. Porter looked at Roman. "And only if Hale's son brought back the dove." Roman's joy tightened almost invisibly. "You knew my father?" "I knew enough to know he was scared for you." The words landed quietly, but I saw them reach him. For a man who seemed built from restraint, grief still found the small openings. Mrs. Porter led us past the picture books, past tiny tables painted blue and yellow, past a wall where children had taped crooked drawings of houses, cats, and suns with smiling faces. My dress brushed against low shelves labeled fairy tales and early readers. It felt strange to walk through childhood dressed for a marriage that had almost erased me. The building grew dimmer as we followed her down a narrow staff hallway. At the end stood a mural of white birds flying across a painted sky. One bird had a black dot for an eye that looked newer than the others. Mrs. Porter pressed it. A panel in the wall opened with a soft wooden sigh. Lena grabbed my hand. I let her. Behind the panel was a stairway descending into warm darkness. The basement reading room was sealed after the flood of 2009, Mrs. Porter said. Publicly anyway. We went down single file. Roman went last, and I knew without looking that he was watching the entrance behind us. The basement smelled of old carpet, dry paper, and the faint sweetness of crayons. When the lights flickered on, I saw the mural from my memory stretched across the ceiling. Dozens of birds painted in flight, blue wings, white wings, gold beaks, all circling a painted moon. In the center of the room sat a low round table. On it rested a metal box the size of a family Bible. Its lock was shaped like a bird with folded wings. My breath caught. The bird vault. My voice came out small, almost 6 years old again. Nora set her folder on the table. "Grace, this should be opened by you and documented from this point forward." I raised my phone, still recording, and placed the brass key into the lock. For one terrible second, it did not turn. My heart sank. Then Roman spoke from the stairwell. "Turn it left first." I looked at him. "How do you know?" His eyes were on the box, but his voice had gone somewhere far away. "Your father said birds do not follow ordinary locks." I turned it left. Then right. The lock opened. Inside was not gold, not cash, not anything a movie would have taught me to expect. There were labeled folders, a sealed flash drive, a cassette tape, and a small blue jewelry box. On top lay a letter addressed to me. My fingers hovered over it. I had wanted my father back for 3 years. Suddenly, I was terrified of getting him in pieces. Nora gently said, "Start with the letter." I unfolded it. My father's words weighted in dark ink. "My dearest Grace, if you are reading this in white, forgive me. It means they tried to turn your future into a contract." I sat down before my knees could give out. Lena stood behind me with both hands on my shoulders. The letter continued. "The Wells family does not want money from you. They want access to records hidden under your trust number, records proving they moved public charity funds through marriages, guardianships, and estate transfers. Roman Hale's family is named in some papers, but not as the architects. As witnesses. As scapegoats." I looked up at Roman. He had gone completely still. Not cold. Not empty. Still the way a man becomes when the past finally says his name out loud. I kept reading. "Grace, Roman may come to you as a dangerous man. He is. But danger is not the same as dishonor. His father paid for silence. Mine refused it too late. Only you can release the records because I placed the final authorization under your independent trust identity. No husband can open it. No family member can sign for it. Only you." My vision blurred. The blue jewelry box trembled in my lap when I opened it. Inside was a silver necklace with a tiny white dove charm, and beneath it, a folded note in my own childhood handwriting. Roman told me birds are brave. Daddy says brave means telling the truth even when your voice shakes. The room went quiet around me. Even the old buildings seemed to listen. Then my phone buzzed. A new message appeared from an unknown number. Leave the library now, Grace. Some truths ruin everyone, including the man standing beside you. The message glowed in my hand like a match held too close to paper. Leave the library now, Grace. Some truths ruin everyone, including the man standing beside you. I read it once. Then I read it again, slower, as if the words might change if I refused to fear them quickly. They did not. Lena leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "Who sent that?" "Unknown number." My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Nora held out her hand. "May I document it?" I gave her the phone. She photographed the message, the number, the time, and the open vault box without touching anything else. That was Nora's gift. She made panic behave like evidence. Roman had not moved from the bottom of the stairs. The basement light cut across his face, leaving one eye in shadow and the other bright enough to show what he was trying not to show. Not surprise. Recognition. "You know who sent it," I said. He looked at the phone in Nora's hand, then at the cassette tape inside the box. "I know who is afraid of what is on that tape." Mrs. Porter crossed herself softly. "Samuel said the tape was for the dove only." My fingers found the tiny silver necklace in the blue box. The dove charm was cool against my palm. "Then play it." Nora hesitated. "Grace, once we listen, we may not be able to put this back into private hands." "Good." I looked at Roman. "I am tired of private hands." Mrs. Porter unlocked a small cabinet beneath the reading table and took out an old cassette player, gray plastic, the kind my father used to keep in his office for recorded interviews. She placed it on the table like an offering. Nora checked that my phone was still recording. Lena stood close enough for her sleeve to touch mine. Roman stayed where he was, silent as winter. I picked up the cassette. The label had faded, but my father's handwriting remained. "For Grace, when choice costs more than comfort." My chest tightened. I pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then my father's voice filled the basement, warm, tired, alive. "Gracie, if you're hearing this, I failed to keep the storm away from your door. I am sorry. A parent always thinks love can build a wall high enough, but truth climbs." I covered my mouth with my hand. Lena began crying quietly behind me. The tape clicked softly as it turned. The Wells family built their clean name by hiding dirty money inside good causes. Clinics, youth programs, housing funds. They needed respectable families to move papers no one questioned. When I found the trail, they offered me safety if I blamed the Hales. Roman closed his eyes. My father continued. Roman's father was not innocent in many things, but he did not build this. He carried messages, yes. He paid men to stay quiet, yes. But when he learned children's charities were being used as covers, he tried to give me the ledgers. That is why both our families were hunted that night. My memory rose whole now. The warehouse rain. My father pushing me toward a boy in a too large coat. Roman gripping my hand and saying, "Little dove, look at me, not the smoke. Not the dark, just me." Not romance. Not destiny yet. Survival, made small enough for a child to understand. The tape hissed. "Grace, the final release requires your voice, not your husband's, not your aunt's, not anyone who claims to know better. Say your full name into the recorder when Nora Whitfield or her legal successor is present, then give consent to transfer the files to federal and state investigators, plus one journalist named Clara Voss. She will know what to do." Nora inhaled sharply. "Clara Voss is alive?" Roman opened his eyes. "Retired. Not silent." Then my father's voice changed. Softer. "And Roman, if you are there, listen carefully. You owe my daughter honesty, not protection that becomes another cage. If the truth stains your name too, let it. Better an honest ruin than a beautiful lie." Roman lowered his head. For the first time, I saw the weight he had carried with posture instead of words. The man everyone feared had been raised inside a debt he did not know how to repay without losing everything. The tape ended with one final sentence. Grace, birds are brave because they leave the hand that holds them when the sky calls. The player clicked off. No one spoke. Above us, footsteps crossed the library floor. Slow, deliberate. Mrs. Porter looked toward the stairs. We closed early. Roman stepped away from the wall, but I raised my hand before he could move past me. Not because I was brave enough to face anything. Because I was finally awake enough to choose. I looked at Nora. Start the release. Nora did not ask me if I was sure. I think she understood that certainty was a luxury, and all I had left was consent. She placed her leather folder on the round table, removed a slim recorder, and set it beside my phone. The basement ceiling birds circled above us in faded blue and white, silent witnesses painted by hands that never knew what they were guarding. Upstairs, the footsteps stopped. One person, maybe two, waiting near the mural door. Roman looked at me, and I saw the old instinct rise in him, the need to stand between danger and the person danger had chosen. But my father's voice still lived in the air. Honesty, not protection that becomes another cage. Roman stayed where he was. That was when I trusted him more than I wanted to. Nora opened the sealed flash drive package and connected it to a small laptop from her bag. Grace, she said, I am going to read the authorization language. After that, you must speak clearly. Use your full legal name. State that you are acting voluntarily. State that you refuse any Wells Trust amendment or marital transfer. Then authorize release. My mouth went dry. What happens after I say it? The files go to the contacts your father listed. Investigators. A state financial crimes unit. Federal recipients. Clara Voss. She glanced toward the stairs. And everyone who wanted this buried will know it is no longer buried. Lena squeezed my shoulder. You can still walk away. I looked at the vault box, at the dove necklace, at the letter in my father's handwriting, at the wedding dress spread around my knees like a costume I had outgrown while still wearing it. That is what they counted on, I said. That I would call silence peace if they made truth expensive enough. Nora nodded once and began recording. Her voice was calm, formal, and steady. This is Nora Whitfield, estate attorney, present with Grace Eleanor Bennett at Ashland Children's Library in Chicago, Illinois. The date is June 14th. Miss Bennett is physically present, alert, and accompanied by witnesses Lena Morris, Evelyn Porter, and Roman Hale. Miss Bennett has requested execution of the release protocol established by Samuel Bennett. The recorder light blinked red. A tiny eye. A tiny heartbeat. Nora turned it toward me. Please speak. I leaned closer. For a second, nothing came out. Then I thought of 6-year-old me gripping a paper bird in the rain. I thought of my father crossing his T like closing a gate. I thought of Ethan waiting for vows to turn into access. I thought of every woman who had ever been told she was confused when she was actually inconvenient. My name is Grace Eleanor Bennett, I said. My voice shook, but it did not break. I am speaking voluntarily. I refuse any amendment, transfer, marital authorization, or estate access connected to Ethan Wells, Charles Wells, Marjorie Bennett, or any party acting through them. I authorize the release of the records preserved by my father, Samuel Bennett, to the recipients named in his instruction, including legal authorities and Clara Voss. I understand that this choice may expose people with power. I understand it may change my life. I choose to release the truth. Nora pressed a key. The laptop asked for one final confirmation. Not a password. A phrase. The screen displayed, "What did the dove carry home?" My breath caught. The answer came from memory before thought. Roman looked at me, and his eyes knew it too. A child's whisper under rain. A game my father had made from fear. I typed slowly. The truth. The screen changed. Upload initiated. Progress moved across the bar, 1%, 3-7. Above us, the floor creaked. Mrs. Porter reached for the stair rail, but Roman lifted one hand gently. Stay behind Grace. Behind me? I asked, startled by the order and the placement of my name inside it. He did not look away from the stairs. Behind the choice. The mural door opened above. Charles Wells's voice drifted down, stripped of wedding softness. Grace, step away from that computer. I stood. My veil slipped from my hair and fell onto the blue carpet. I did not pick it up. Charles appeared at the top of the stairs with my aunt behind him, pale and trembling, clutching her pearls like they could protect her from what she had helped build. Ethan stood behind them. My groom. Still in his tuxedo. Still beautiful in the expensive, empty way of showroom furniture. He looked at my dress, then at Roman, then at the laptop. Grace, he said softly, using the voice that once made me feel guilty for wanting answers. You do not understand what you are doing. The upload reached 34%. Nora stepped beside the laptop. She understands enough. Ethan's eyes stayed on me. He is using you. I looked at Roman. He did not defend himself. He let the accusation stand where I could examine it. That mattered. Ethan had always rushed to explain. Roman let truth breathe. Maybe Roman loses something today, I said. Maybe he loses more than you do. The upload reached 56%. But he gave me the letter. You gave me a hidden phone. Ethan's face tightened. My aunt whispered, Grace, please. Your father would not want this public. The hurt of her betrayal rose again, but it no longer owned my voice. My father built a vault under a children's library because he knew people like you would call truth shameful to keep yourselves comfortable. The upload reached 78%. Charles started down one step. Roman moved then, not toward him with threat, but into the center of the stairwell with stillness so complete it became a wall. No closer. 2 words. Quiet. Enough. Charles stopped. For once, nobody touched me. Nobody guided my hand. Nobody softened the room for men who had sharpened it. I watched the progress bar reach 100%. A soft chime sounded from the laptop. Release complete. It was the gentlest sound I had ever heard from a weapon made of truth. For 3 seconds after the release completed, nobody moved. The laptop's small chime faded into the basement air, and the painted birds above us seemed to circle in silence over the wreckage of every plan made without me. 100%. 2 words on a screen had done what 200 wedding guests, a cathedral full of flowers, and a groom in a tailored tuxedo could not do. They had made my life mine again. Charles Wells stared at the laptop as if he could still command it to forget. Ethan looked younger suddenly, not innocent, just smaller without the performance of certainty. My aunt gripped the stair rail, her pearls pressed so tightly against her throat that I wondered if she finally understood what it felt like to be held by something beautiful and cold. Nora removed the flash drive, sealed it in a clear evidence pouch, and wrote the time across the label. Copies have already transmitted, she said. Any attempt to interfere now becomes its own record. Charles's jaw flexed. You have no idea what you have done. I looked down at my veil on the blue carpet. A few hours earlier, women had touched it like it was sacred. Now it looked like fabric, nothing more. I know exactly what I have done, I said. I refused to become a doorway for men who were too afraid to knock on the truth themselves. Ethan took one careful step down. Roman did not move, but the air around him changed. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to remind the room that stillness can be a boundary. Ethan stopped and lifted both hands slightly, palms open, the way guilty people do when they want their fear mistaken for peace. Grace, he said, soft again, familiar again, dangerous in the old way. I cared about you. I wanted that sentence to hurt more. Maybe yesterday it would have. Maybe yesterday I would have searched his face for the man I had hoped he was. But hope, I learned, can be a room with no windows if you decorate it long enough. You cared that I was useful, I said. His eyes flicked to the dove necklace in my hand. You think he is different? I followed his glance to Roman. Roman stood between the stairwell and the table, his face unreadable, his name now inside the files my father had released. Ethan was right about one thing. Roman was not simple. He was not clean in the easy way people pretend to be clean when no one has opened their records yet. He came from shadows. He carried debts. His family had paid for silences that damaged lives. But he had also brought me my father's letter and let me choose whether to burn his own world with it. I think different is not the same as safe, I said. And safe is not the same as honest. Nora's phone rang. She answered, listened, then looked at me. Clara Voss received the archive. Federal and state contacts confirmed receipt. They are requesting that we remain here until official representatives arrive. Mrs. Porter exhaled, one hand over her heart. Lena let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt the strange emptiness that comes when the storm has not ended, but the roof has finally stopped pretending it is not leaking. Charles turned to my aunt. Fix this. She flinched. For the first time in my life, Aunt Marjorie looked old. Not because of her face, but because the lie holding her upright had lost its spine. She looked at me, and tears filled her eyes. Your father was going to ruin everything. No, I said. He was trying to stop you from doing that. She shook her head. I was scared. So was I. The sentence came out softer than I intended. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Just truth. But I was the one you were willing to sell for peace. Her mouth opened, then closed. There was nothing elegant left to say. Footsteps sounded above us again, but this time they were different. Firm. Multiple. Official. Voices called from the library entrance. Nora stepped away to meet them, carrying the sealed pouch and my father's folder. Charles's face lost its final trace of color. Ethan looked at the stairs as if calculating which version of himself might survive the next room. Roman turned slightly toward me. Grace. My name in his voice felt nothing like ownership. It felt like a hand offered in the dark without closing. I looked at him. Did you know the files would name your family? Yes. Did you know they might damage everything you built? Yes. Then why bring me here? For once, Roman Hale looked almost tired. Not weak. Never weak. But human in a way the city would never put in its rumors. Because when I was 12 years old, your father put me in the back of his car and told me power without truth becomes just another locked room. His eyes moved to the open vault. I have lived in locked rooms long enough. Something in me softened, carefully, like a bird testing a branch after rain. Above us, Nora's voice spoke to the officials. The world was changing one documented sentence at a time. I picked up my veil from the carpet, folded it once, and placed it inside the empty vault box. Ethan watched me. What are you doing? I closed the lid gently, leaving behind the part of me you dressed for silence. Then I walked past him toward the stairs, not as a bride, not as a witness, not as a dove in anyone's hand, but as the woman who had finally learned that the sky does not ask permission before it opens. By the time we reached the main floor of Ashland Children's Library, the rain had stopped. It left the windows silver, the sidewalks shining, and the children's mural glowing under the weak afternoon sun, as if the painted birds had finally found weather gentle enough to fly through. Officials stood near the front desk with Nora, speaking in low, careful voices. Mrs. Porter handed over copies of her signed statement. Lena sat on a tiny blue chair meant for a child, still holding my ruined bouquet across her knees, like she had no idea where else to put the last piece of a wedding that no longer existed. Charles Wells did not shout when they questioned him. Men like him rarely waste anger where witnesses can write it down. Ethan did not look at me as he walked past, guided toward a quiet room with glass walls and too much daylight. My aunt tried to say my name once, but it broke before it reached me. I let it fall. Some apologies need time before they become anything more than fear wearing softer clothes. Outside, news vans had not arrived yet, but they would. Clara Voss had already sent Nora a message with 5 words, "I remember Samuel Bennett." Within 48 hours, my father's archive became the beginning of investigations that stretched farther than I knew how to imagine. The Wells family lawyers called it misunderstanding, then mismanagement, then unauthorized legacy material. But paper has patience. Bank trails have memory. Recorded voices do not blink. My trust stayed frozen exactly where my father had placed it, beyond the hands of husbands, relatives, and men who smiled too well in churches. The wedding was officially canceled by sunset. I donated the dress 1 week later to a community theater on the south side, after asking them to remove the veil and the pearl buttons. I kept the dove necklace. I told myself it was because it belonged to my father's story. Later, I admitted it belonged to mine too. Roman disappeared from the headlines for a while, though his name lived inside them like a shadow no editor could fully crop out. Some of his businesses were audited. Some closed. Some survive because truth, even when it burns, does not always destroy what is willing to become honest. He did not call me for 30 days. Not once. No flowers. No messages slipped through Nora. No black car outside my apartment. At first, I thought silence meant regret. Then I understood. He had promised me a door, not a cage. On the 31st day, I found him at Ashland Children's Library, standing in the basement reading room beneath the painted birds. He wore no tie. His dark hair was less perfect than before. In his hand was a new paper dove, folded badly from white printer paper. "You are terrible at that," I said from the stairs. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw Roman Hale smile like a man and not a warning. "I was hoping you would not notice." "I notice more now." He nodded, accepting the sentence the way he accepted most truths, without decoration. I walked down slowly. The vault box was gone, taken as evidence, but the blue carpet still held the faint square mark where it had rested. My veil was gone with it. Good. Some things are meant to be archived, not carried. Roman held out the paper bird. "I wanted to return this properly." I took it. Our fingers touched for one brief second, ordinary and warm, and neither of us pretended it meant nothing. "Do you still owe me, Roman?" I asked. His eyes stayed on mine. No, the answer surprised me. Then he added, "Debt keeps people tied to the past. I would rather ask for a future I have not earned yet." The old me would have needed that to become a promise. The woman I had become understood it was better as a beginning. I looked at the crooked paper dove in my hand, then at the man who had entered my wedding as a stranger and returned my name to me instead of taking it. "Then start with coffee," I said. We walked out of the library together under a clean evening sky, not hand in hand, not yet, but side by side. And that was enough. Because love, real love, does not arrive to finish the vows another man abandoned. It waits until you can speak your own name clearly, then asks whether it may walk beside you.